being at the helm of any business is not all that different. It's not all that different. Running an automotive business is not all that different from running any of the other businesses that you would traditionally associate a woman with. In India particularly, you would talk about women in banking, or you would talk about women in the consumer goods space. I think the essentials of being successful in the automotive space is very much the same as being successful in any other industry. So, and I think the most important thing for us as women is really to see how we can showcase the success of women across sectors that can then share knowledge, share experience, and if we can play the role of saying yes, it can be done, happy to do that. Manufacturing in general has had less women than any other industries, simply because of the nature of the industry and the demands with respect to, for example, working in shifts, or working on the shop floor has its own demands. We've had for many decades we had a very strong union movement. So all of those have been typical issues as far as shop floor goes. But I think over the period of time, and certainly over the last few years, and within TAFE, and I don't say the numbers are large, the numbers here are reasonably small but growing fast. I think it's kind of doubled in the last 3 years. So, and we see women, the areas of preference, we are not closing it to women in any area, but we do see the choices. The women are making some very judicious choices, and the areas they like are really R&D, center of excellence, for example, our center of excellence in electronics, or we talk about the supply chain, we talk about brand management, you talk about finance, IT, marketing. These are the areas we see women choosing to be in. The two areas, and you're right there, the two areas that we don't see so many women coming, and I think there are very obvious reasons for this. One is the shop floor. Even in quality, we do see, and they're doing a very good job. We don't see too many on the shop floor or in frontline sales, and we are in rural sales. So I think there's some very specific reasons why a woman today would not choose to be in frontline sales. And I must share an experience with you in this regard. And this was perhaps we were still not ready for it, but at one point we had a few women. I went into a sales conference within the company, and I found there were two women there, and I said, are they our staff or are they dealer staff? They said our staff, and they were working in the very traditional market of Rajasthan on frontline sales. And I said to them, really, how are you finding it, the frontline? And at that point they were really excited because they were being so well received, and the homes of these Rajasthani farmers, they would get called in, and then they would be given buttermilk and asked to sit down and everything. They were very excited about it. And I said to them, okay, this is great. I don't want to discourage you, but if at all you have an issue, give me a call. Give me a call. They didn't give me a call, but 6 months later they weren't there. They weren't there because I think the Rajasthani farmers, in hindsight, I don't know if this explanation is correct, but the Rajasthani farmers probably were so surprised to see the women that they almost treated them with reverence, but didn't actually sort of culminate in anything substantial or productive. So probably I think after that we've not seen too many women in frontline sales. The conditions are fairly harsh, and as infrastructure improves, things will improve. Travel conditions improve, infrastructure improves, particularly in rural India. I think we will see more numbers. Strangely, we're talking about people in sales, even if you look at North American context, and I think the most progress has been made in the North American context. You will see women in senior management positions. I saw an estimate, a most recent estimate of around 22 to 25% in senior management positions in North America, and you see a growing number of women coming into not just in General Motors, Mary Barra, of course, an outstanding example, but not just in General Motors, through the depth of the organization. General Motors, Ford, even in Toyota in North America, you see women coming into many areas. And I was interestingly looking at a list of women, the top 100 women in America in the automobile industry, and what stood out was I didn't see many women in frontline sales or on the shop floor. I did see good numbers in R&D, design. We saw good numbers in supply chain. we saw in the HR side and the finance side, but I did not see on the shop floor. And so I think there's a fair way to go, not just in India, but even in North America. Let me talk about some of the hygiene factors, perhaps. The hygiene factors, we need to provide a good environment. And, you know, for example, the first thing you look at is washrooms. Washrooms, and we need to provide them, however small the number of women that you have are. You need to provide an atmosphere that is safe. And in our case, for example, we've had slightly different travel rules for women. So in order to make it safer, they go one travel notch up. So I think women don't expect way beyond that. They want a good working environment, they want the basic hygiene factors, and they want to feel part of a team. Beyond that, one way of encouraging them, and we've been trying to apply our mind, and so I'll share with you firsthand what I know as our example. As an example, we started an initiative called TWIN. It's TAFE Women's Initiative Network. What we do here is really to address the development goals. The purpose is to provide a network where personal issues also, they are like a little forum, and they can talk about their personal issues, their work-life balance, learn from each other, etc. But also we give them a number of opportunities for their professional growth. So some of the things we do. Besides outbound trips, we're getting professionals to come and talk to them. We're sending them for development programs. We build special programs for their own development. A program that we call BOSS, which is build on your own strengths, and a program, and so they can address their development goals. And we also get the men to come and participate in the program, which has been a very interesting experiment, because if you want the numbers to really grow, and you need the majority to also integrate the women into the company nicely, seamlessly, without any gender biases. You need to do that. So we're getting the men to come and participate in these discussion panels at TWIN and speak. And the upcoming panel discussion we have for Women's Day is an all-men kind of panel. So once they do that, and it's been amazing, the last time they did it, they came with, and these were very senior executives, who came in with a lot of research done on women, the kind of diversity they bring, what is their special skill set. They talked about multitasking. They talked in very appreciative tones about the role that women can play, which means to them, they've spent a little bit of time thinking about the subject. They've internalized it, and then they're spreading the message. So they're getting a lot of buy-in, and if you go with the top management, they are the bosses, they're automatically getting the buy-in of their subordinates. So this has also worked well, and I think that's something that we'd like to build. And I think those are some of the proactive things that we can do to build a very healthy working environment. After that, you come to the whole assessment phase. When you come to the assessment phase, I think one thing I often think that in the Indian context, there isn't really a differentiation in pay. Yes, when you want to move up in terms of promotion, you might have to just prove that you are one notch better than the man in order to move up. I think that exists. You have to just be that much better. And perhaps if you're very much at the top, then the men expect that woman should be far more efficient than they would expect of a man in that job. That is true. And therefore, perhaps only the very best move up. But there is no differentiation in terms of pay. So our aim, therefore, is to bridge that gap, or not a gap, I think, to make sure that our women are one notch better than the men in that job, because otherwise they're not going to move up. So I think that's our approach. We've tried to tackle it that way. If you want to be really, and many of us have global aspirations, if you want to be a global company, then I think you can't afford to ignore 50% of your talent pool. So and I think women bring a very different set of skill sets, very diverse skill sets. And I think today we have to, in the automotive industry, we could certainly do with a fair amount of diversity. I'm not talking only diversity in terms of women or gender, I'm talking even in terms of diversity of thought. We certainly could do a lot better, and with the way technology is changing, you're going to have to be very innovative. And any organization that is going to be innovative has to be able to absorb new thought, has to be able to absorb diversity. And I think therefore this gender thing is not just for promotion of women, it's part of a larger objective of making your organization actually thrive on diversity. And if top management is sold on that concept and the leadership has to come from there, then it's possible to do. Then it's possible to structure it, it's possible to put in a champion, it's possible to create forums, but I think it starts from the top.
So just one question. Do you think it is even a part of the agenda for the top management across the industry in India? If not, then what will it take to become?
I think if folks like you in the forum showcase this, the successes that other organizations have had with their women, I think it will make top management respond. One very good move, and sometimes in our country, the law is ahead of practice. And women, bringing these women directors on the boards of companies, to me, I think I'm very proud of the move. And I've said this at many international forums, and people can't even believe it, that in India you really have this thing. And there was a lot of criticism about saying, you know, people are putting in their wives or daughters or whatever on boards, but why not? That person is very often a shareholder and will therefore learn the ropes of the business. And if you look at the same scenario 10 years down the road, it would have made a huge impact. Maybe for the first 2-3 years, a little bit of a starting issue, but again, after 10 years, it would have made a huge impact. And therefore, I think it's possible to do all the performance measures that you would normally see on a KRA form. You'll see that. You'll see that happen, and I think there's enough studies to say it. This morning, I was actually reading a research piece that had come out, a very interesting article, maybe I'll share that with you, that had come out from Australia, which says that the boards that have 2 women directors have performed the best. So I think it's measurable. Well, the point I'm simply making is it's very easily measurable. We have people here within the company, for example, and I'll give 2 examples. We have, for example, a young lady working in the fit and finish area, and I think she is perhaps one of the most sought after executives, and people always refer to her by name and say, you know, can we call her to do this exercise? So I think performance will speak for itself to the areas that women are doing well. And I want to make two comments in that space. One, I think in the auto component, in the automobile industry itself, if you look at it as OEM and component and dealers, and I want to share 2 examples. In the component industry, there you do see a lot of women. Being family businesses, you do see the next generation of women coming in, and it's been very heartening to see, and I think that can also lead a movement for women in the industry. The second thing, and I'm proud of this, being from the South, is that the emphasis that traditionally women in the South, even in the automotive industry, are getting more opportunities and are doing quite well. The reason is it's because in South for many decades now, I think there's been a phenomenal emphasis on education and women's education. I mean, the girl child, you see it in our colleges, you see it in our schools, the girls are doing better, the enrollment is better, and I think the emphasis on education, there's no differentiation in South India between the women and the men, and that is very important. So promoting women's education at a national level is perhaps the surest way to getting them to participate in a bigger way in all spheres of industry, not just the automotive industry. For 2-3 years into the company, there is a turnover of women, and for social reasons. They get married, they get transferred, they have children, and if we want to encourage them, one way would be, can we provide an opportunity for them to take a break and come back? And we've had organizations here, and maybe we've not worked much with them, honestly reflecting, and I think we perhaps need to work more with them. Organizations that focus especially on reskilling, as they call it, or just bridging the gap in terms of the years lost for women when they come back to their organization. Maybe we can work more closely with people like that, so that we give an opportunity for people to come back. But I think women are now working it out with their spouses to say, can suggesting and coming to some understanding on where they should be located so that she has as much of a career opportunity as he has. And I think the expectations from the spouse are changing rapidly, and our society also needs to adapt to those expectations.